Hello and welcome to today's workshop, the iGo workshop from the Green Industry Platform. I hope everybody is doing well. To begin with, before we go any further, I would like to point out what we have on the screen in relation to simultaneous interpretation. To choose your language, French or English, please go to the bottom of the screen and use the translate icon on the bottom right on the menu, and you can choose either French or English for whatever language you prefer to listen in. So today's workshop is about the iGo Assistant, and we have a quite interesting agenda for you. We will have a couple of speakers to both introduce in general the activity of UNEP, but also what has been happening on the iGo project overall in Africa. I will give a walkthrough of the tool itself in a lot of detail. We will have a Q&A session, and we will have a wrap-up in terms of next steps. I would ask all of you to please feel free to use the chat function for any particular questions you might have. You can put your questions in French or in English. We'll be able to respond in either language. So, if I may, I would like to straight away move to our first speaker, Richard Munang, who's the Deputy Director of the UNEP Regional Office for Africa. So, Richard, if I may quickly pass over to you to give a quick introduction to this workshop from your side. Many thanks.
Yeah, thank you very much. I really appreciate the opportunity, Mr. Chair, and the esteemed members of the iGo network, representatives of various SMEs, support organizations, respectable colleagues, ladies and gentlemen. It's actually a great honor, and I will start off with an African proverb, which goes that those who end up accomplishing great things pay attention to little things. In context, this African proverb reminds us that to achieve resource efficiency, every step counts, even the little ones. Projections, as we're speaking today, show that under the status quo, meeting global developmental needs will require a 200% increase in natural resource extraction by 2050. This is happening in a globe where humanity is already overdrawing by 1.6 times the services that nature can provide sustainably to guarantee human development well into the future. The writing is on the wall, and we urgently need to address these issues, especially in resource consumption that has plunged our planet into the triple planetary crisis, the crisis of climate change, of biodiversity loss, of pollution and waste. And the best way to address this crisis is to build profitable enterprises while safeguarding the foundation of these enterprises, the environmental resources base. But what is Africa's take on this? In 3 decades leading up to the 2010s, and while the globe saw an average increase in resource efficiency of up to 30%, Africa registered only an 8% increase while deindustrializing and having the lowest level of value-added enterprise actions. By contrast, the Oceania region registered a 56% increase, Europe 49%, North America 95%, and Latin America 52%. Those low levels are denying African enterprises significant opportunities for enhancing competitiveness. For example, let's consider food systems that employ up to 60% of Africans, including in the informal sector. An investment of $280,000 in enhancing water and energy efficiency in just one agro-processing enterprise in Africa can provide an annual return on investment of up to $295,000, reducing the cost and distance between input sources and markets through digitalization can lead to an up to 15% reduction in agricultural production costs in the entire continent. Aquaponics, which is soil-less farming, can reduce land and water consumption by up to 90%, provides a 100% return on investment, and break even in 1 year. These are opportunities that resource efficiency can unlock for small and medium enterprises in just one sector, the agricultural sector, which also happens to be Africa's most inclusive sector. With such glaring benefits, all SMEs in Africa need to eat They need to drink and sleep resource efficiency. And to this end, we are delighted that the Green Industry Platform and the Global Opportunities for Sustainable Development Goals are supporting the launch and global rollout of the IGO Assistant to help small and medium enterprises become more resource efficient and thus increase their competitiveness, increase their resilience and productivity. The training and launch of the IGO Assistant will equip Africa's SMEs with the tools to unlock these benefits. I am excited because the deliberations and feedback from this workshop today will help improve resource efficiency for SMEs. Still, it will also assist in further bridging the communication gap between Africa's enterprises and development partners. As the continent takes steps to rebuild back better, to rebuild back different, following the COVID-19 emergency, resource efficiency stands as a strategic paradigm for SMEs. They are the backbone of economic growth to adopt. And this will go a long way in actuating the impact of the continent's bold recovery response plans in the Africa Green Stimulus Program and the complementary African Union Green Recovery Plan between 2021 and 2027. As such, the route ahead is clearly defined and well illuminated. Let us therefore walk it. Let's walk it with boldness, knowing that SMEs are the critical drivers of economic growth and long-term sustainability for emerging markets globally. Let's walk this route with boldness, knowing that in Africa today, SMEs account for approximately 90% of the region's employment and are seeing to the establishment of a new middle class, thus fueling demand for more goods and services. Let us walk this route with boldness, knowing that resource efficiency stands as a potential silver bullet to enhance the financial performance of Africa's SMEs, to lower financial risk, and by these unleash much needed capital assets, especially towards rebuilding businesses following the COVID-19 devastation. In so doing, we will shove off the resilience of the continent's SMEs to future shocks such as COVID-19 and the changing climate. Ladies and gentlemen, I will end with this proverb: wood already touched by fire is not hard to set alight. The IGO Assistant tool is already practicing what it preaches: resource efficiency. This means we're hitting the ground running. And none of the knowledge and support services that it points SMEs are new. They are existing solutions that have been gathering those simply because SMEs are either unaware of them or are too doubted to be keen looking for them. By simply matching SMEs' needs to existing solutions, IGO Assistant is embracing the often said cliche: do not reinvent the wheel. However, IGO Assistant matchmaking will only be as good as the critical feedback it gets from workshops like these, as well as from the runs with SMEs. We need your support to then be able to provide your insightful feedback and help rule out this solution. Thank you very much, and I wish you fruitful deliberation today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Richard. I think that's given us a very, very good start and a very motivating start to this workshop. So it's very, very much appreciated. And I do hope you'll be able to stay on and take part in the discussion afterwards. I think that can be also quite interesting for you. Now, before I move to Mbali, who will present on what has been happening in Africa with the IGO solution, because we have been doing a pilot project over the last 6 months or so, I would like to just quickly ask all of you if you can add the name of your organization after your name so that we can see who exactly is here today and that the participants have a better idea of, in case they want to chat to you, etc. To do this, please go to participant list on the bottom of your screen, find your name, click on your name, and you will see the button More. And when you click on this button More, you have the option to rename yourself. And all we ask that you do is add the name of your organization after your name. This will make it a little bit easier for everybody and more interactive. So with that small instruction out of the way, I would like to immediately pass over to Mbali to give an idea or to give an overview of what has been happening with the IGO pilot project in Africa to get us to this stage. Mbali, if I could ask you to keep it to 10 minutes, it would be very much appreciated.
Thank you, Hannes. I'd like to share my screen, please.
Yes, you should be able to do it straight away. Okay.
Okay, good day, colleagues. Many thanks for joining us for the first IGO launch. It's really with great enthusiasm that we start launching in Africa. As Hannes have said, my name is Mbali Murwe. I work for the National Cleanup Production Center in South Africa, and I've been part of the IGO team for the Africa region as the NCPC South Africa is the implementing partner. My presentation will be very quick. I'll just take you through the IGO to give you an introduction of the IGO and what we have been up to in the Africa region. So I'll be very brief and precise, and then we can engage further during the Q&A session. So basically, what is IGO? You know, it's really just the tailored resource efficiency, knowledge and support services. Yes, we are focusing on SMEs, but really it can be for any business. So now I'm trying to move to my next screen. So who is behind IGO? I'm just going to briefly explain this diagram that you see on the screen. Basically, Green Growth Knowledge Partnership are the developers of IGO, and they are funded or they are supported by the 5 organizations at the bottom tier of my triangle. And then from Green Growth, you know, they have 3 other platforms that they actually work with, and IGO falls within the Green Industry Platform, which is the first one, but there is also Green Policy Platform and then Green Finance. And then the last small triangle on top, which is very interesting, it's the Green Forum. This is where you know, it's similar to LinkedIn, but more, it offers more than LinkedIn because you can connect with a community of experts. You can create your own profile, you know, and also share your organizations or your personal interest or knowledge or work in green resource efficiency. So I'll really urge all of you to actually, after this call, perhaps take a look at the Green Forum and see how you can also participate, not only by gaining knowledge, but also sharing your own expertise and knowledge on the platform. So as I've said, IGO has regional pilots. Okay, we are the one who are starting in Africa. There's other 2 that are coming. We will be followed by the Latin America and the Caribbean rollout. And then lastly, it will be the Eastern Europe and the Central Asia. So there is some form of a standardized methodology of IGO globally, if I can put it that way. So it's not only a silo operation happening in the Africa continent. So taking it home to the Africa region, we were lucky that the project was funded by the GO for SDGs and also the Federal Ministry of Germany of Environment and Nature Conservation. So they are the people who funded the IGO Project Africa Pilot Program, and we are very grateful for that. And then, as I have said, the project developers is the Green Industry Platform from the GGKP. And then the NCPC South Africa, we are the pilot implementer. So hence you're hearing my voice. So we have been doing the work in partnership with GGKP in ensuring that the IGO Africa pilot projects comes to life. So just a brief knowledge of who we are as NCPC. We are a program of our government. We are under the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition, and we are hosted at the CSIR. So we are just basically there to support our South African industry to improve its competitiveness while reducing the environmental footprint. And this we do through the implementation of resource efficiency and cleanup production methodologies. So we offer these services through the 4 key points that I mentioned on my presentation, which is assessment, implementation, skills, RCP tools, and then advocacy. So we also contributed to the IGO platform as well through the RCP tools that we've developed as South Africa and also shared with the other Africa continent. So the IGO Africa, the pilot project status so far. So what we have been doing it for the past, I can say 6 to 7 months, we piloted it through a few countries in Africa. This is where really we started, to do stakeholder identification. We started stakeholder engagements, and then also introducing the IGO project to our Africa stakeholders. And then we also started to contribute to the IGO tool resource database. Some of our stakeholders that we identified and engaged with, they submitted tools and resources that we could actually add on the IGO resource database. This is a continuous process. We're still going to be carrying on in adding more stakeholders, and also in adding more resources and tools onto the database. Really, as Richard says, every step counts, and we are really relying on all of us, even you on the call. If there's any tool or any resource that you think can be beneficial for SMEs in Africa, please do keep in contact with us. We will definitely still be updating and populating. This process does not end here, but it's really just the beginning. So we have a few learnings as well from just this is a first of a kind, if I can call it that way, a project that we have done, so also a bit unique to the Africa continent, so we really learned that we still need to focus on developing, the regional or the national IGO networks country by country, and also at regional level as the Africa region. So that is still a work in progress. We'll still carry on doing that. And then really for us to achieve a comprehensive resource database, we really still require to dig deep and do quite a number of engagements, especially with SMME supporting organizations, where really we get to explain IGO and we get their buy-in, because those are the people that we really need. And perhaps there's also a number, there's a number of items that have been developed. We don't want to be repeating the wheel, but we just want to identify what is out there, and then we start implementing. So we will still also start just developing a directory of qualified service providers that are available in Africa. That is still a big, we discovered that when we were doing our engagements, that we still need to really put some work in doing that. And then, yes, we really still need to do some work as well in also including on our networks, and also on our tool to include both English and French and other languages that are spoken in our Africa region. So those are the few points that I can point out as learnings that we found within the 6 to 7 months that we've worked on IGO. So I just want to give a brief explanation of the systematic approach of IGO. So what we've been doing is really, we started with step 1 of really mapping what already exists, and then also just finding out who's doing what and where, and then start developing SMME portals, and then understand what SMME needs are. And then we develop a business case, and then we start matching SMMEs to existing solutions that we have found in the first critical 2 steps that I've explained. And then we understand what gaps are within the process. And then we coordinate on how are we going to fill those gaps. So this is basically, in a nutshell, how the IGO system work. It's an overall, it's engagement and exchange, and then having knowledge and data that is stored within one place, but that can be also analyzed and matched with the SMME that needs it. So that is in a precise detail of really the IGO systematic approach. So how does really IGO work now? So The first part of IGO, the first deliverable or support that an SMME will get from IGO is through the SMME Support Center. This is where you will find guides and tools, be it training or technical assistance or financial solutions that are out there. This is the first step. So this is where you'll find all the knowledge that you require as an SMME. And then the second step is now the IGO Assist. This is almost a diagnostic tool. It's not a deep detail assessment, but once you enter your information based on the sequence of questions that the assistant tool is designed to get from you, then you will get a concrete recommendation report at the end, tailored for your service or tailored to support your service based on the information that you would have put in. And then the last step, which is still up for implementation and finalization, is the implementation manager tool. This is really critical. Once you've taken the recommendation given under the offering number 2, which is the IGO Assist, then here at number 3, the implementation tool, it's really giving you an opportunity to analyze and to monitor your implementation data or projects that you have done, and make sure that you've got an audited trail of how your implementation is doing. So this is what actually IGO offers to SMEs in the Africa continent. But in order for these 3 steps really to work efficiently and provide support that our SME really needs, it is really pillared on getting SME supporting organization to know about IGO, to disseminate and share it with their SME partners or associations or members. And this will just ensure that this tool gets to an SME that really needs it. And really, it's a coordinated effort from us as well. If you've got any tools or any knowledge that you think can really benefit, IGO is the place where everything can be stored and anyone can really access it at any time. So that is our main key, that this is a continuous process just to ensure that all these 3 components of IGO are effective and they really assist SMEs. So that is all from me, colleagues. I really hope that you will really partner with us as we move forward in ensuring that IGO is a real reality. By me saying reality, I mean it really benefiting our SMEs, and also by us just knowing as the region, what other stakeholders or what other experts within our fields are doing, and at least now IGO is offering us a one spot where all the knowledge that is needed is stored and available just at your fingertips. So thank you. I'm looking forward to engaging with you further during this workshop. Thank you, Hannes. I'll hand over to you.
Thank you very much, Mbali. Very, very good introduction to the IGO initiative overall and how things stand in Africa. Mbali, I'll just ask you, yes, you've stopped sharing your screen. Thank you very much. So, I hope that this has given you an idea of where we're coming from with the overall IGO initiative and what has happened to date in Africa. It's worth pointing out that today is actually the first day that we are really launching the IGO Assistant, the core tool of the IGO initiative. And we will actually be launching this also in 2 other regions in Latin America and in Eastern Europe, Central Asia over the coming 6 weeks. So it's a gradual rollout into the different regions. But today, Africa is the first region to get the IGO Assistance officially launched. So what I want to do is actually now get into the practicalities, into really showing you what is the IGO Assistant. Again, the IGO Assistant is the core component of the overall IGO initiative, and to show you how it works, the thinking behind it, and most importantly, to get your feedback on it. I mean, hopefully some of you have already had the opportunity to try this out. We sent an email to all of you with the igosolution.org link. It'll appear in the chat here as well, so you can also, in parallel to my walkthrough, have a go at it yourself. But like I said, key here is to get your feedback, in particular during the Q&A session. The IGO solution, or the IGO assistant, sorry, we have lots of different names within the IGO initiative, it's a new tool. We're testing it out, and so your feedback is very important. But let me start. Let me share my screen and show you a little bit what the IGO solution is about. I keep using the word solution, the IGO assistant, apologies, and how it works. And most importantly, I will show it to you in real time as well. So the very first thing, IGO Assistant, what is it? And here I use literally just one line of text to explain this. It is a self-assessment and navigation tool. What does that mean? It means that it does two things. It tries to understand where an SME is at in relation to resource efficiency, and based on that understanding, direct them to the most relevant resource efficiency knowledge or support services that are adapted to their location, to their particular situation. Now, what is the main purpose? It's a matchmaking tool, you could say. Because we have this mix between a self-assessment and a navigation, the idea is that we match all of the different existing resource efficiency knowledge and support services that are out there with an individual SME's needs. And again, one thing I would like to stress here is this is not a tool that directs to green industry platform developed resources. It is a tool that promotes all of the existing resource efficiency knowledge and support services that are provided by other organizations. We essentially, through the IGO Assistant, want to direct SMEs to those knowledge products and support services that are provided by different organizations. And that's very important to point out. We essentially promote the work of others. We're everybody's best friend, you could say. And this matchmaking is for us quite important because there is a huge range of information out there, whether it is technical guides, case studies, tools, or support services like training, like technical assistance programs, like financing solutions. There's a lot out there. And it's kind of a big pile of stuff for an SME to try and figure out and to get their way through. And most importantly, you could say, even though there's a lot out there, nobody really understands what's missing based on what a particular SME would need. So we have a huge mass of information, and yet there's probably a lot of stuff missing. And that is one thing that we did find out through, for example, the pilot project, as Mbali said, is there's a lot of gaps. I mean, we have a lot out there, and yet there's a lot of gaps when we get down to country level, sector level, type of SME, etc. So if we think about the IGO Assistant as a little bit of a matchmaker kind of tool, and what does it do in this matchmaking? First of all, we have the self-assessment aspect of the tool, which is where we aim to understand what is an SME's resource efficiency status. Do they even know what resource efficiency is? Are they already doing something? In what area? And based on this simple understanding, we then, first of all, provide customized recommendations that are adapted to the status of the SME. And really a key outcome is we then provide a tailored list of knowledge and support services to be able to implement those particular recommendations. So it's customized steps, 1, 2, 3, all with the idea of understanding the SME, giving them we use the word recommendation, but in its way, it's guidance on what steps to take. And then we point them to this technical guide is most relevant to you. This training is most relevant to you based on your particular status. So that's why we call it a self-assessment and navigation tool. And here we need to stress what it doesn't do. There's a lot of confusion. Because we use the word self-assessment, people tend to assume that it's a diagnostic tool. That means it's like an in-depth operational audit of an SME. It doesn't do that. It is to understand their general status. We don't go into the detail of a diagnostic tool. There are a lot of very good diagnostic tools out there, and we in fact point the SME in the direction of those to really get into more detail in understanding, their operations, get down to the detail of do they need to do changes on their process line or their office lighting. That's a diagnostic. We don't do that. We point the SME in the direction of that. Also, we don't ask any SME to provide any personal details. The only information we ask about the SME is what country it's located in, what sector it's active in, and its rough average size. We need that to be able to point them in the direction of the most relevant information, but we don't ask them for their email address, their name. It can all be anonymous. That being said, at the end, when they get their results, we do offer them the opportunity to open an account, to create an account with us. What this does is it means that they can save their results online and they can stay in touch with us and be part of a growing network. But it is purely an option at the end after they get the result of their iGo assistant. So again, there's no fear of this can be done anonymously, so to speak. Who's our target audience? Well, obviously, the number one target audience are SMEs. And to begin with, we're actually focusing on a particular type of SME. We're focusing on SMEs that would normally have a business client. That means that they are selling their product or service to a business client and a large business client. A business client that might be interested in, pushing their supply chain to be more resource efficient. That's already the scale of SME we're looking at. So we're not looking at the informal sector just yet. We're not looking at very small SMEs just yet that would sell directly to a consumer. We don't exclude them in the future. It's just that we have to start somewhere. So we've started with that type of SME. We're also more focused on SMEs that are involved in manufacturing. To begin with. Now, it's not excluding services, it's not excluding other areas, it's just where we're starting off with. It's kind of where we've put a focus on the iGo assistant. However, that being said, it is also relevant to service providers and what we call large consumer-facing companies. Why? Because for service providers, it's probably a very good way to, one, help the SME very quickly see what kind of opportunities are there for them, and also it helps the service providers identify the support services that they can direct the SME to themselves. So obviously it's a tool that a service provider could use as well. And the large consumer-facing companies, well, more and more, or big multinational or nationally orientated companies, they're faced with the need to become more sustainable in the face of their consumer requirements. And they're looking for a way as a result to honestly incentivize or motivate their supply chain to become more resource efficient as well. And as a result, the iGo Assistant can be a simple way for one of these companies to help the SMEs in their supply chain. That is also important to keep in mind. Now, how does it work? I'm actually going to walk you through the iGo Assistant to show you how it works. But just very quickly, we ask simple questions in 3 specific areas. 1, the business basics, and that's very simple. It's what country, what sector, your size. So 2-second input. We ask questions on resource efficiency strategy. Very simply, basically, overall, has the SME thought about resource efficiency? Do they have anything in the line of a strategy in place? And then we ask very quickly about what kind of actions they've done. Now, again, it's high-level type questions that we ask here, but we want to see if they have actually carried out any particular actions. And all the questions are simple, and the answers are even more simple. It's basically yes, partly, or no. So we're not looking for energy data. We're not looking for water data. We're just looking, did you do this? Yes or no. So no operational data required. Now, with that, I think the best thing to do is to move on and show you this in real life, how it works. So if I may, I'm going to switch to the live version of this, and all going well, there will be no hitches in this. We literally, I have to be honest, finalized everything late last night, so the tool is all was tested, works out, etc. So if there's a little quirk, if you see a spelling mistake anywhere, please excuse us. It will be corrected straight away. So what you have here is you have a website address, igosolution.org. This is the official website for iGo. And straight away on the first page, you see click to start. And this is where we start our IGO Assistant. Now, there are a couple of other things. We do also have here on the toolbar a tab called IGO Network, and I'll show that as well afterwards, because I think that could be quite interesting for many of you participating here today. But first of all, let me start with the tool itself. So, like I mentioned, the very first thing we try to find out is something really basic, as in the location. And let me, in honor of our partner in South Africa, the NCPC, I'll choose South Africa. I'll choose manufacturing. I'll choose a company size. And these are important inputs because straight away what this means is the results will all be orientated towards what's available or relevant to South Africa. And theoretically also in relation to manufacturing. And I have to confess here is that for the moment, we don't have a very strong sector focus in our results. And I'll explain why. It's got to do with actually a lot of gaps out there. But the country is very important because that does determine if there's anything available in your country, the results will reflect that. And I click next. And here I'm into my actions and my strategy. Now, what we have here is we have questions on strategy. We have questions on energy, water, material, chemicals, and waste. And the way this is structured is that I can go through very quickly, or it can take a little bit more time. The idea being is if I'm an SME that is honestly quite new to the idea of resource efficiency, I will probably be answering no to all of the questions that appear, and I'll be through this in 30 seconds. If I'm an SME that is a little bit more advanced, I'm starting to think about resource efficiency, I might have done a few things, I will be answering yes to a few questions. And whenever I answer yes, I'm actually asked another question. Why is it that? Basically, we have the more advanced an SME is on resource efficiency, the more information we try to get out of them to understand exactly what that status is. Now, to explain how these questions work, I'm actually going to go back to my presentation and just show you another slide here. We actually follow the plan, do, check, act approach in our questions. That means within strategy, what you have just seen there, we ask up to 4 questions. A question related to have they planned anything, have they done anything, have they checked anything, have they acted. So basically, question 1, we will ask an SME, have you developed a strategy or have you carried out an action? That's the first question we ask. And I'll just quickly change back to my screen, like this question here on strategy. Has your company's top management made a commitment to improve resource efficiency? And have you developed a strategy? Yes, partly, or no? Let's just look at no there for a second. Bear with me 1 second. And I'll show you this in the PowerPoint again. So if I, for example, select no, my status is automatically for strategy, I have done no action to date. However, if I select yes, I go to the next question in that strategy section. And I'm asked, have I done an I have a strategy, I've carried out an action, but on that basis, have I actually done an audit? I might select no. And if I select no, that's the end of my questions for that particular section. I get a particular status. Or if I go yes, I get to the next question, which is related to checking. So it would say I've done an action, carried out an audit. And the question is, am I monitoring and verifying my measures? If the answer is no, I get a status, which is a bit better, it's intermediate. If the answer is yes, I go to my 4th question. And this question asks, are you looking beyond your operations? You're quite good on everything you've been doing, but are you actually thinking outside of your own operations? If the answer is no, I still get a very good status. Or if the answer is yes, I get an even better status. And that is how our questions work. Now, I'll show you that again in real life, just to explain. So in the case of resource efficiency strategy, let's assume I say, yes, we have made a commitment and we do have a strategy. I click next and I stay within strategy and I'm asked another question. Have I carried out an in-depth assessment? Yeah, let's say I have actually. I've done a resource efficiency assessment. And then I'm asked, have I put in place a monitoring and review process? This is my check, my 3rd level. And in this case, I'm going to say, actually, no, I haven't. So it doesn't ask me any further questions. It brings me straight to energy. Now, in the case of energy, I'm going to be asked the same series of questions. The one thing I do want to point out, though, is the way we ask this question here is now going to be different depending on how we answered in resource efficiency. So these are not isolated sections of questions. Each one takes into account how I previously answered in, for example, in strategy, it takes into account how I answered there. So if I was not advanced in any way on strategy, I would be asked a different type of question here. So our questions change depending on how I answered previous questions in a different section. Now here, I'm going to say I'm excellent in energy. I'm going to say, yes, I have included goals for energy management in my resource efficiency strategy. I get asked another question. This is just to check what kind of measures I have put in place. And then I'm asked the plan do, the do question, which is, have I done an audit? I'm going to say yes. And here I'm asked the check question. Have I put in place an energy monitoring system? I'm going to say yes. And as you see, I'm still staying within energy because I keep answering yes. And here I'm asked, outside of my own operations, am I doing anything with anybody in my value chain? And here I'm going to answer yes as well. So I'm excellent in energy. Now in water, I'm going to speed things up a little bit, and I'm going to say I have done nothing in water. I'm not asked any more questions. I go straight to material. So again, the tool doesn't waste time asking you questions if you actually haven't done anything. In materials, I'm going to say that I'm, let's say, halfway there. I've done something, but in fact, I haven't done an in-depth assessment. So I say no, and I move to the next one. Chemicals, I use chemicals, but I haven't done anything. I go straight to waste. So you see how quickly I move between sections based on how much I've actually done. And with waste, let me show you again. If I click yes, I stay. I'm asked another question. In this case, what type? In this case, have I done an in-depth assessment? I have, and I keep getting asked questions all the way up. Now, in this case, I'm going to stop quickly and I'm going to go to the end. What do I see here? I see let's say what we call an interim result, where I'm shown graphically roughly where I stand on strategy, on energy, on water, on materials, etc. And it's a nice graphical representation. And one thing you should note as well is we have a benchmark facility. The gray is the average of all the SMEs that have used this tool to date. So I can see how I compare to the other SMEs that have done this assessment. Now, the reason we have this stage here, it's quite important, especially if you are going to use this tool. If you're testing it out, I would ask you not to validate your results, to go back and actually make it a real assessment for your organization. Again, you don't have to be an SME to use this, to do this assessment. You can be any organization. But because we use the results as the average, it is nice that the results aren't just test results. So we do offer the opportunity to go back and do another self-assessment or to validate. If I validate, I get much more information. I still get my graphical result, but I'm able to play with my benchmarking. So the benchmarking that I have here, I can compare it, for example, let's compare it to the agricultural sector, and we'll say Albania. And I apply, and the gray has changed, as you can see. So already I can see that I'm from South Africa, I'm in the manufacturing sector, and when I compare myself to the Albanian agricultural sector, in fact, they're actually much better than the average manufacturing sector. So that's just to give you an idea of how our benchmarking works. And what I want to say is, unfortunately, after this workshop, we're actually going to switch this benchmarking function off for 2 weeks, for a simple reason, is that obviously we need to build up an average score for it to be accurate. And because we're just launching the tool now, we need to get more SMEs using it so that we can build up the average going forward. So that's just to let you know that if you use it over the next couple of weeks, you probably won't see this average function. It will appear within 1 or 2 weeks once we have enough results again. Now, aside from this graphical result, we also then go into the recommendations and obviously also the list of support services. So within each one of these, you're given a quick overview what your status is. So for example, I'm intermediate. It tells me what that means. I'm advanced. It tells me what that means, etc. But if I click here, I actually get all of the additional information. One, I get a simple recommendation, a storytelling type recommendation, as in what should I be doing as a kind of a key next step. But not just that, we also give them the next steps to let's say, implement that particular type of recommendation. In this case, it's got to do with a monitoring and review process. That's roughly the status where the SME is at, as we've discovered. We explain why it's a good idea to put in place a monitoring and review process, and we give the kind of key steps, what that involves. Now, again, this is a high-level recommendation. It does not replace a diagnostic assessment, and it certainly doesn't replace an auditor coming in and doing an in-person audit. But it's awareness building. It's explaining to the SME how to move to the next step in their status. And then very importantly, for that recommendation, this is the tailored list of knowledge products and support services. Here we say, based on your particular status, based on your particular location, we recommend this guidance. We recommend this case study. We recommend this tool. We recommend this training. These are the financing solutions currently available, and these are the types of technical assistance that is available to you. And we do that for each particular section. So for under energy, you have the type of tools that are most applicable, you have the type of funding that is most applicable, and so on down the list. Now, this is obviously all based on quite a comprehensive database that we have put together. And what I'm going to show you next, if you look here at energy management, I've shown you one particular result based on advanced. But what if we compare advanced to a beginner? I will show that on a different screen here. What you see here is energy management where the result is advanced, and energy management where the result is complete beginner, they have done nothing. So already the recommendation is completely different. Here we say that you're doing a lot. Here we say you haven't even started, and we explain why it's a good idea to do it. We don't have any next steps here, for example, but here we do. Here we have some key next steps for the SME to take. The list of support services is also different. Here we have a much more higher level type of guidance, from energy auditing to ISO 50001 management system. Here we talk about the Better Business Guide to Energy Saving. So already the type of guidance we direct the SME to differs between whether they're advanced or they're a beginner. Some stuff is the same, like the training program. There are some trainings that are the same, but there are also some trainings that are different. Here, we have a focus more on energy management implementation and energy performance indicators. Here, it's more a case of starting out, system optimization, learning about energy management 101, etc. The funding solutions are the same. Unfortunately, there aren't a lot of funding solutions out there, but that would be roughly similar. Now, at this stage, I've shown you everything in English. We also, of course, have this in French for Africa. And to give you an idea of what that looks like, bear with me while yes, you see it on the screen. For example, here we have the two same statuses in English and in French. Obviously, it works out the same. And the list of guidance, in some cases, unfortunately for French, it's on the weaker side because there just is not a lot out there that we've been able to find in, honestly, this short period of time. So we have less guidance in French. We try to put in some relevant English where required, but at the end of the day, this is an interesting comparison to also show where the gaps are between an English language and a French language list of support services. But again, I wanted to show you this so that you can see that we do adapt to the language, we do adapt to the country, we do adapt to the status of the SME. What I want to do at this stage is pause, because I have spent, I think, nearly 25 minutes talking, and I'm going to stop to share my screen. And I think I would like to start to open it up to the audience a little bit. And Tracy has just popped up a poll for everybody. Thank you very much, Tracy. And I would like to get your instantaneous feedback here in terms of, do you think SMEs would be interested to use this IGO assistant to help them understand their resource efficiency opportunities and access support? Please be honest. If you think that this is not a good idea, that they're not going to use it, please say so. I have no issue seeing not so interested people or feedback as well. Now, already I see that we're getting quite a good response rate, and that there are more saying that it would be very interested. But importantly, I see that there are a number of people saying that there's only the somewhat interested, and somebody has been brave enough so far to say not so interested. I'm very glad to see that, because I do appreciate the honesty on this particular poll. Please feel free to keep putting in your answers. It's very much appreciated. Based on this, it's quite interesting to get this kind of feedback live during the workshop. Based on this particular feedback, I would actually like to open it up now to the audience to really see if anybody would like to straight away ask me a question. Maybe you didn't understand something about the IGO assistance. Maybe you see an issue with it. Maybe you see how it could be relevant to your organization. This is your chance to raise your hand. If you can, you can do that through the participant list or straight on the menu bar, and let me know if you have a particular question. Now, I see already Charles, who has put up his hand. Charles, please, would you like to pose your question to me?
Thank you so much. It's not a question per se, but I don't know if you allow me to make some comments which are very relevant to the IGO assistant.
Please. All I ask for everybody, including you, Charles, is whenever you make a statement, etc., we just try to keep it relatively short so that everybody has the chance to engage, if that's okay.
Okay, thank you so much. The first one is on the element where we have sector-specific classification of SMEs. I know in the tool it has not been highlighted clearly, but I'm looking at a local setup. The sector classification is very important because it also gives us an idea in terms of their different SMEs environmental footprint. Then the next one is on lobbying policymakers, because this is more of a circular economy model, which it will be good to lobby this model to the policymakers, because it will help implementation at local level. The other thing is on gender. I would like us to gender the IGO too, so that, because if you look at the classification for women and men in terms of this footprint, you find that both in agriculture and even in SMEs, the women have that larger percentage. I'm just trying to connect with our local setup in Malawi. You find that we have more SMEs run by women, which also tells us how much footprint they are exerting on the environment. There is also issue of the African Continental Free Trade Area. I would like to find a way how we can green the African Continental Free Trade Area, because if you read the agreement, there isn't much which has been mentioned about environmental conservation and biodiversity issues, because that also has an impact, because almost trading will have a direct impact to resource efficiency. And the last one is issue of engaging the media and the civil society organizations, because I've seen a lot of funding which has been channeled to civil society organizations which are doing environment, but I think there's a disjoint in terms of their contribution to target SMEs in terms of SMEs efficiency. So yeah, that's another issue which I would like whether it will be at a local level or you can also include that at that level, it will be very important in terms of realizing benefits for this, because I find this to be very good to reverse some of the damages which you have done to the environment. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Charles. You've given me many discussion points there, I have to admit. Actually, the fact that you've given me such a detailed input from your side, I think this is a good opportunity to actually tell everybody that we have now created a special IGO group on the Green Forum that Mbali mentioned at the very beginning of our presentation. And the purpose of this group is it's for everybody who's involved in the IGO is to actually engage on the particular types of points that Charles has raised. It's a great way for you to engage with each other and also for us to essentially continue the conversation that we're having here in the workshop, because we're not going to be able to answer everything that's going to appear already in the chat and in the discussion. So we will actually make sure that you all receive an invitation to this IGO group in the Green Forum, where things will continue. One thing, if I may pick up one particular point that you brought up, Charles, because I think it's quite important, is the first one you made on sector specific. And this is very important. I did mention that we still in our results don't have a lot of sector specific results. It's actually because it's very complicated to bring together all the different type of information and do it sector by sector. And there's a lot of information missing. Some sectors like hospitality for certain countries have a lot, especially on a global level, but on a country level, they don't. And some sectors like manufacturing have a bit more than, for example, the agricultural sector. So this is actually an important next step for us, is to actually bring more information together so that we can focus on the sectors as well. So if I may, Charles, I'll move then straight to the next hand that was raised. It was from Jesse. And Jesse, I think you noted also in the chat, you had a question regarding the benchmarking. Can I let you take the floor very quickly?
Yeah, thank you very much, Charles, and thank you very much for the organizers of this webinar. I think the IGO, I must say that the IGO solves a lot of questions to convincing partners and companies on taking on what they have to do or what they have to know in general. And this is more like, it has done 60% to 70% of the presentation, whether you're a consulting expert to the company and say, hey, we have a tool for you. But first, let's give you the opportunity to assess what we want to say. That is based on the fact that they have a goal, they know what they want to do regarding water management, resource efficiency, cleaner production, and all the rest of it. Thank you for your presentation. The question I want to ask, I just want to follow up on the question of what I wrote in the chat is regarding the data, because I saw you perform a magic where you did the comparison between, let's say I'm based in Nigeria, yeah? And even though I'm sitting in Vienna now, but my consulting is in Vienna, it's in Nigeria. And when they are doing the comparison, the company in Nigeria, which whom you are presenting the IGO as a first start self-assessment, is comparing himself with a company, or how is it done, let's say in Austria, or is done in the Netherlands, or done in Peru. So I just want to follow up on that. What was the thought behind that comparison, and which data and indicators did you use to coming up to that point where the manufacturer or the processor or the processing company will be able to say, okay, I'm not doing too well, I'm doing very well when compared to other companies in other regions?
That is really important to address, actually, that particular question. And this is also comes back to my point where I said we're actually going to switch off the benchmarking for a couple of weeks. The way this benchmarking works is, for the present, actually quite simple. We basically take the average of all the responses to this self-assessment. Now, all the anonymous, okay, we just gather the results. We don't gather the details on the company, as I mentioned. But we take the average of all the responses that come through the self-assessment and use that as our benchmarking. So is it 100% perfect benchmarking? No, it's indicative benchmarking. How do I compare with the other users of this tool? Now that's how we're starting off. And like I said, we're actually going to remove the benchmarking, the visualization of this benchmarking for a couple of weeks until we build up that average score, that average range of results, because we don't want people to benchmark essentially against themselves. We want them to benchmark against the average of a number of users. Now, going forward, we're actually going to improve the benchmarking facility with data that we collect from projects that have carried out audits with SMEs. Now, this is a big step for us to take because it requires an awful lot of work to collect all of the audit data that was carried out by many different national and international development organizations. However, that data that we eventually get, clean up, and use will be another level of accuracy. It will be based on actual audits of SMEs in different countries, in different sectors. But that's that's going to take a little bit of time to bring in and do. So in the meantime, it's a comparison with the average result of all of the users of this tool. If I may, what I would like to do, I see that I have another hand up. Now, before I go on to additional questions from the audience, I would actually like to bring in somebody in particular. Roberta from UNIDO, if I may turn to you, in fact, because I know you've had a lot of experience through your UNIDO program working with SMEs on resource efficiency. Now, I'll just ask you this simple question. You've now seen how this tool works. Could you give me your honest feedback? Do you think that this is something that would be relevant to the types of SMEs that you have worked with through your program? And how do you think it could potentially be improved on to make it of best use to SMEs? Could I get your general feedback on this, taking into account your experience from your own programs?
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much for inviting me to contribute to this event. Yes, as you know, UNIDO has been quite active in working on resource efficiency, and particularly I was developing this test methodology that is an integrated tool for resource efficiency. And yeah, we have piloted a lot of these applications in different industrial sectors. So in my experience, I think what is the most important aspect is to make company understand or realize how bad they are performing and what is their potential for improvement. I think this is the key driver that motivates company to engage in the journey of resource efficiency. And in order to get that level of awareness, I think it is necessary for companies to two things. So first of all, to have a benchmark compared to understand how bad they are performing compared to sector benchmarks. And of course, this requires some sector-specific information. And I think the second element is they need to also feel confident that there is a business case for resource efficiency that is relevant to their sector and to the country that they are working with. So having good benchmarks and tailored case studies, possibly from the same country and the same sector the company belongs to, I think these are important conditions to raise the awareness and motivate company. So if I understand well, just getting back to your question, the IGO platform is an awareness raising tool, essentially. No, it aims at raising the awareness of companies regarding where they are and what they could do. So I think in order to be most useful, a tool like IGO, which I think has the potential to be attractive, it needs to embed some more specific linkages to sector benchmarks and sector case studies. So you were mentioning, for example, at least from your presentation, that some of the resource material that companies are guided to include case studies. But if there is no request from, for example, business sector of operation of the company, so I presume the case studies will be not specific to that sector. So I think, for example, one way to improve the platform, the IGO platform, could be really to go to request at least information about the sector of the company and to offer a sector specific case study that possibly is from the same country the company is operating. And at the same time also offer somehow some benchmarks, or at least some potential, I think the case study can include some indication of potential improvement for the sector. But I think these two elements are a key drive, you know, for companies to move forward. And then, of course, the IGO can become a good way to raise the awareness. And of course, the next step, in my opinion, would be to have a solid linkages to service provider who can help companies in this journey.
Thank you very much, Roberta. And your feedback is actually very good, very pertinent, in fact. And it's been brought up a little bit in the chat as well about the sector specific. And it's really, I agree, it's very important. And it's why we actually asked the sector at the beginning of the assessment, because the goal is to be able to direct the SME to sector specific information. We don't do it just yet, even though we asked the question, what sector you're in, because we actually still need to get more information that is very sector specific. And this actually allows me to ask everybody here today a very simple question. What we really would love to have from all of you is anything that you would like to see or that you think should be promoted through the IGO Assistant. Do you have case studies for your country, for the sector that you're involved in through your network of SMEs, etc.? Share it with us. We will make sure that it gets added to our database and that it is linked to through the IGO tool. We essentially need to grow our current database of resources to really have a much better sector level range of case studies, tools, guides, etc. We need more. And that's actually a very important point to ask all of you, is to share that with us from your organization, and we will make sure that it gets put into the IGO Assistant and that it appears for that sector-specific area. The other thing you mentioned, Roberta, about IGO being an awareness tool. It's correct. It is an awareness tool. And what we're fully aware of about this is that we have to motivate SMEs to want to use the tool to build their awareness. And as we all know, it's very hard to go to an SME and say, use this tool, become more aware. Honestly, the average SME is not going to be interested in using this tool just because it's a nice thing to do. We accept that, we know that. So a big challenge for us is how to get this tool to the SMEs. It's not enough to connect with you. It's not enough to connect with the business associations. We have to go further. We have to develop the business case for resource efficiency for SMEs to want to be aware of their opportunities and the potential. And here I'd like to put another poll up on the screen, if I may. And this poll asks a very specific question related to this. It is about the business case. How can we increase the business case? If you remember from the previous poll we did, about 70% of the audience said SMEs would be quite interested. The other 30% said not so. Here the question we're asking is, do you think SMEs would be more interested to use IGO Assistance if their clients require them to become more resource efficient? What we mean by that is, if the SME has a business client that says, you want to keep your contract, you need to become more resource efficient because we want your product to be sold through us to be sustainable. Essentially, if the SME client creates the business case for SMEs to become more resource efficient, will that mean that SMEs would be much more interested to use a tool like IGO Assistant to understand their opportunities, to understand resource efficiency better, and obviously to straight away see What do I need to do and what is available to me to be able to meet my clients' requirements of becoming more resource efficient? This is a very important question to put out there because in parallel to everything we're doing, we are also working on a program to work with larger companies on how to motivate and incentivize their SME clients to become more resource efficient. And it's not enough for a client, an SME client, to put pressure on the SME. They also need to say to the SME, we want you to do this, and here is where you can get the help to do it. And that's where we see IGO Assistant coming in, is that the large client can say to the SME, use IGO Assistant to learn about the supports available to you to be able to meet our resource efficiency requirements. And suddenly it's not us knocking on the door of an SME saying, save the planet is a good idea. It is their client saying, you should do this. And here is a tool to help you find what you need to do to be able to achieve our requirements. That is very, very important part of the overall IGO initiative, is creating the business case for this. So Roberta, answering your statement there or replying to your statement, it's an awareness tool that we need to develop a business case for as well. And we're very aware about this. So I'm glad to see the results here that in general, people think it would be much more interesting for SMEs to use the IGO Assistant if the pressure, and I use the word pressure lightly, is put on them by their business clients. But let me then move on to the rest of the audience, because we do have a number of other hands that are raised. If I may move straight away to, apologies for any mispronunciations, Oluyomi, if I'm correct, from UNIDO, you had your hand raised first. I can move to you if you'd like to take the floor.
Yes, thank you very much. And good afternoon to everyone. So I am from UNIDO, but I'm based at UNIDO's regional office for Nigeria and the West African region. So I sit in Nigeria. In 2017, I embarked on a mission with colleagues from UNIDO headquarters in Vienna to the NCPC in South Africa to understudy the NCPC in South Africa, while I was also understudying some other NCPCs. And we had quite a number of visits to industries who by themselves, they were pitching RECP to us and other participants that were on that visit. So, and it was interesting to hear the testimonies from the industries themselves. So I went back and started working with the stakeholders in Nigeria and the other UNIDO colleagues. So today we are implementing an RECP project in Nigeria as well. And some of the questions I would have wanted to ask have actually been mentioned by Roberto and Jesse. One of them was on the benchmarking and indicators. Just to add an element to that benchmarking is, if you want to look at it from the angle of benchmarking by country or by sector. And number two is, I wanted to mention the test methodology, which Roberta has also mentioned. Then this IGO, I find it very interesting and I find it very useful, especially for SMEs. But I feel if you have the sector categorization, it immediately makes it 10 times more important, 10 times more interesting, 10 times more acceptable for the industries. And if you could also have a sector performance rating on this IGO, because as a company, as an SME, I want to know how well I'm doing, because at some point countries may start coming up with legislative and legal tools on RECP and circular related policies and regulations. So I think it's a very good tool. It just needs a bit of upgrade, which you have mentioned. And yes, countries are good to go, especially the developing countries. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. That was actually some very, very interesting insights. And you've brought up, very importantly, the idea, the topic of sector. I mean, we're seeing it in the chat. We're getting it from everybody who has spoken here as well. And it's, like I said, it's really well noted that this IGO assistant honestly will be much more successful with sector relevant information. And let me use that as a way to actually explain. I mentioned before, we'd like to get from you as much information as you have, resources that you have to help us get to the stage where we can provide much more sector specific resources through IGO. But to support all of this, we have developed the IGO network. Now, you might have remembered from Mbali's slide that we have this very important core part of IGO called the IGO network. Now, this is really how we want to engage with you through this IGO network. It means that following this workshop, all of you will be invited. Some of you have already received this invitation, but all of you will be invited to join us within this IGO network. It's an informal network. We're not asking anybody to sign any agreement, but it's basically saying we want to work with you in a network to share information, share resources, share experiences, so that we can make IGO as an initiative and the IGO assistant better for you and for your network of SMEs. And most importantly, help you in return. How can we help you in return? One, we can identify ways to, let's say, adapt existing support services in other countries and other organizations for your particular needs. So for example, if you are an organization that provides a range of, it doesn't matter, water management solutions to SMEs, and you want to get into the energy solutions as well for SMEs, we will be able to say, okay, did you know that organization X, Y, and Z in your country is also doing something here? Maybe the two of you could work together. Maybe their resource pack could be adapted for you if they're coming from a different country, etc. So we want to do a lot of support towards you in actually helping improve your support services to SMEs. So this IGO network, like I said, you will get an invitation to join this. It is also a part of our Green Forum group that was mentioned previously as well. So this is a very important area that we want to work with you on as well. Now, on that particular point, Elsie had originally put a note into the chat about a group, an industry group. Now, Elsie, I understood it that you were asking, what if we bring together a group of companies, and would we help them, or would we support that group in using the questionnaire and applying the results, etc. Yes, I think that could be a very, very interesting project to address and take on. So I will definitely connect with you after this to take that idea further. But I noted that based on your particular point, a number of other people in the chat, I think Michael Fergel also talked about a group of experts. And that is something that we would also like to do, is how can we build up a strong group of experts in a region between the cleaner production centers, between other types of organizations, so that there's a much better exchange of best practice and expertise, so that we can have expert training workshops that are not just presentations, but actually expert training, etc. So that's another aspect that we want to address through the IGO initiative. Now, I know that we still have hands up in the audience, but I think this is an opportunity to hear from an NCPC. Peter, can I ask you to come in at this stage and talk about your experience from the NCPC side? One, how you see the IGO assistant maybe potentially helping you, but also maybe your interest in being involved in the IGO network and being part of a larger group of experts. Could I ask you to take the floor, if I may?
Hello, everyone. I hope I'm heard audibly. Yes. I'm Peter Sakaja, Clinical Officer at Uganda Kidney Production Center. And part of my comments, just like if this tool is shared with the enterprises at this moment, you'd find that the response could be, if I would gauge it in percentage, it would attract like 30 to 40%. But once some of these things are added, like my comments are not different from what members have been saying, the sector-specific ones, because someone needs to see a relevance as to why, when I choose to be from the fish sector, my recommendations are going to be different from the agriculture. Even the questions, so the tailoring would come straight away from the questions, that if someone selects agriculture, the questions should be related to agriculture. When it relates through chemicals, they should be related to chemicals. When he selects some areas, some sections could perhaps disappear, like the chemicals management section, where these chemicals are not used. Then the other thing is that when you go to the recommendations, one of them, they are mostly referring to NCPC South Africa. And of course, I would not mind about this, because I know that currently South Africa is the one which has been involved in this. But perhaps if we could generalize some of these, instead of cases whereby you say NCPC South Africa, we could say contact NCPC in your country, because Nigeria has an NCPC, Burkina Faso has an NCPC. Look it. Have we looked at maybe also adding this will mainly benefit to those companies which have really not done any receipt to help them even do how to do an assessment, resource efficiency production assessment. How is it done practically section by section? So if you could link to that, you could perhaps contact UNIDO, they would have this receipt toolkit. Then when it comes to the chemical management, also UNIDO has a program known as the chemical leasing business model. This is also a very useful tool that we could link to the areas when it comes to chemicals management. And then also when it comes to case studies, I would say when it comes to Uganda, refer them to the Uganda. Perhaps this is where we could come in as the center and we see how we can provide some of these case studies, because people really feel that they are good to use this toolkit once they see information which is country specific. Then under steps recommended for companies before, yes, actually, that's the one. Perhaps if we could add that receipt toolkit, it could really move it from the diagnostic to something which could be used in terms of receipt. Otherwise, that is my comment. Thank you so much.
No, thank you, Peter. And I'm very glad you talked about the fact that I was showing you resources from South Africa. The first thing, one of the reasons why I was showing you resources from South Africa is I chose South Africa as the country at the start of the assessment, which is why we saw results related to South Africa. Now, that being said, if you had chosen, for example, Morocco, you would have not seen the results from South Africa, but you would have seen more generic results for Africa overall. So it wouldn't have focused on the South African NCPC, but it wouldn't have shown results for Morocco, for example. It would have just shown for the region. Now, what I'm doing is I'm actually sharing my screen just to mention a few important points here. The IGO Assistant for Africa has been developed overall for the region, and we have developed one country-specific result for South Africa for the moment. That means if I'm in South Africa and I choose South Africa at the very beginning of the assessment, I will see results for South Africa. If I choose any other country in Africa, I will see not the South African results, but more generic results for the Africa region, for any other country. Now, the reason behind this is that IGO, the assistant, we're going into, we have literally developed this, and we're now going into a test phase where we see how everybody uses it, what the feedback is, so that we can continuously improve it. And what we'll be doing is country by country by country, we will be adding this to IGO. So for example, a next step will be to engage more with the Ugandan Cleaner Production Center to make sure that we have all potential resources for Uganda. that we put them in our database, and that we create the result for Uganda. Similarly, for the French-speaking part of Africa, that we include more French-speaking results for particular countries there. For example, I mentioned Morocco. Now, I have to admit, it's actually quite a lot of effort to develop country-specific results, because we need to go to the country, we need to have an engagement with an NCPC or other organization there where we actively work together to bring all of this information together. Very important is to know which bank is lending what type of loan on resource efficiency, etc. So it's a lot of work, which is why we do it country by country by country. And I say to all of you, this is why it's very important to that we all stay in touch here through IGO, that we develop a strong relationship with you so that we can add this country by country. So as you can see, key steps for us going forward is sector-specific information and country-specific information. And honestly, we can't do it without your help. It's a huge amount of effort to do this, to bring it all together. And that's our aim with IGO. We in the Green Industry Platform are knowledge managers. We are all about bringing knowledge together, but it is a big task and it's going to take it step by step. So I look forward to working with all of you on this, bringing it together as we go forward. Now, that's worth making a point here is obviously we would be very appreciative if you can promote IGO to SMEs in your network, but obviously the sharing of resources and connecting with you is very important. Now, I would like to take 2 more inputs before we go into our closing session. Very patiently, I have had, again, excuse me for the mispronunciation, Nebi Yalul, who has had their hand up since quite a while. Would you like to jump in and take the floor with what question you had for us? And apologies that we kept you waiting so long.
Thank you very much. No worry. First of all, I would like to thank you for this really very interesting presentation and clarification about IGO assistance. It's not a question, but it's just a kind of recommendation if it was to include the social and economical issues and this IGO assistance tool, because it's more focused on environmental issues. And instead of really making it only environmental issues, it would have been good, at least relevant to the SMEs to have also solutions for the social and economical issues, so that it makes the tool more comprehensive and helpful to solve issues related to their competitiveness. This is what I want to say.
Thank you very much. Now, I have to apologize because the sound did break up a little bit during your statement. So I have to admit that I didn't capture anything, but it was very much appreciated. What I would like to suggest is do please make sure that you stay in touch with us after this workshop. I would actually like to also catch up with you again, because I think I can connect a bit better that way to follow up with you. So please do make sure that you stay in touch with us after this workshop. We'll also try and contact you directly, but you can maybe put your details in the chat so that we can follow with you directly as well. Now we have a few minutes left to go before our final session, and I would like to actually turn to Claire Teresa from ARSCP. And this is, I think, a way to wrap up a little bit and address the need for us within the IGO initiative to bring in more country-specific information, to be more sector-specific, by actually, first and foremost, maybe developing a better collaboration between the different country NCPCs and the related organizations in Africa. So Claire, if I may turn to you and maybe get some insights from your perspective, how the ARSCP might be able to collaborate with IGO in actually, let's say, connecting the NCPCs together and, I don't know, making IGO much better through the input of the NCPCs.
Okay, thank you very much, Hans. I hope you can hear me. Yes, the ARSCP is the African Roundtable on Sustainable Consumption and Production. And we've been in existence for the last nearly 16 years now, since 2004. It's a regional body for all members, that individual and corporate members, mainly composing, it constitutes the NCPCs in the different participating countries. And we basically have the same agenda as the IGO initiative. And our intention and motive is to really make sure there is an active network of members that are putting every effort and intentionally working towards sustainable consumption and production and RCEP. So we believe that the IGO initiative is very timely, and it can actually foster the activities of the ARSCP in terms of giving us more impetus in working with the NCPCs wherever our members are located. And how our members have been working is that we actually participate with the NCPCs actively, and we do physically visit the interested or those SMEs that we have interested in becoming sustainable in their production patterns and consumption. So we actually get physically involved with the SMEs that we do have networks with, and we do knowledge sharing. That is one of the areas that in ARSCP is strong at. We do knowledge sharing. The other is compliance in terms of helping the SMEs set clear, simple rules or regulations on how to achieve RCEP. So we are very active in that, and we believe that with the coming into place of the IGO initiative, we can actually improve our presence in the countries where we are located, and also increase the knowledge sharing. So we are looking more at also in terms of the IGO initiative, we are thinking of getting involved with the initiative in terms of the monitoring and evaluation aspect. We believe we can have a strong input in that area if we come together and network, not only to share the knowledge, but to check if there's been implementation, if there's been compliance with a few rules that, especially for those SMEs that would be willing to participate. There is a lot of work, like you mentioned, Hans, in terms of getting the buy-in from the SMEs, giving them the knowledge, and then moving with them, hand-holding them to make sure that there's implementation of what has been agreed. And our experience as ANCP has been that the hand-holding actually helps. The monitoring and evaluation and checking what has been implemented, what is pending, what is the problem, how can we help, and at an institutional level, but also at an individual level, as we share information and share knowledge and check and tick the boxes on what has been done, has been helping. So we believe that ARSCP, given its wide coverage in the region, given its present participation in many of the programs that are geared towards RCEP, would be very instrumental and would achieve much, especially with the coming in of the IGO initiative and the tool. So we believe that is an area where we can participate. We can do the monitoring and evaluation, but we can also do technical assistance. Our membership across the region is about 300 members. We have contacts of all these members, and we have networks in terms of the social media platforms. So we do share information, and we believe there is a wealth of knowledge on these platforms in terms of reaching out then to the SMEs in the particular countries and sharing knowledge if there is concerted effort with the IGO initiative. I think that's what I can contribute now. And thank you very much. Over to you, Hans.
Oh, thank you, Claire. That's a very, very good input and a nice way to wrap up this particular discussion. And I'm looking forward very much to collaborating with ARCP on this. I think it's going to be quite interesting going forward. Now, I will move then very soon to David. I just want to mention I wasn't able to take everybody's comments that came in through the chat. In particular, I know that Wolfgang Sunu, if I got the name right, yeah, Sanu, sorry, had a number of comments as well. Wolfgang, we will definitely follow up with you as well after this workshop. I know that you're coming in from the program in Burkina Faso, so some very interesting input from your side as well we will follow up with. You will all hear from us very, very soon after this. You can gather that we're just at the beginning of a test phase with the IGO assistance. We have a lot more work to do. We want to make it more country specific. We want to make it more sector specific. And we want to work with you on this. So please take that home with you. That's we're looking forward to a collaboration. But this is moving into the next steps. And in fact, that is David Rubia's job from UNEP and Go for SDGs. David, I'm going to hand over to you for an excellent roundup. David, please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Hannes. Can you hear me? Okay, fantastic. So I've been asked to give a wrap up and next steps, but I want to start by saying thank you very much. I think we have 43 people with us now, and we've had up to I think 57 or 60 or something like that. That is a very, very dedicated group of people in this post-COVID times. I don't know what we are in right now, but with all the exhaustion of virtual events. And so for me, I'm quite heartened by the participation. But also, Hannes, I want to thank you and your team. You're a very dedicated bunch of people. You worked pretty much 24 hours for the last 7 months together with Lee and Bali from the South African Cleaner Production Center and their team. So this is really your guys's, sweat coming to fruition. And one of the things I'm seeing right here from some of the comments, that we're getting is it's quite intuitive. And so that at a minimum, you've met what you set out to do, which is make a tool or an assistant, I wouldn't call it a tool, that people can actually flow through. Because if they can flow through, then we'll get the information and then it'll feed itself into helping SMEs. So I think I want to give you my personal thanks for that. So I think mine is quite brief, to be honest. Hannes and I have had lots of conversations with all sorts of different and interested folks, and in terms of how we can take IGO forward, because now we're rolling it out. So as Hannes has said, we'll be really, really pushing for more SMEs to start, testing and self-assessing with the IGO assistant. So I think for me, it's needless to say the very first next step is to roll this out far and wide. So one of the first appeals we'll have to you is to help us get the word out on IGO and get a lot of people, a lot of folks try and I may not say play, but interact with it, engage with it, give feedback, because this tool will only live with the feedback that it gets. I think the second thing that's continuous, and Bali, I want to echo your words, this is a continuous loop, is to get all the resources we can into the resource database. So the resource database, again, there's a lot of people, I'll call them Hannes's elves in the background working, populating the database, and they've been relentless, working hard. They need your help. Any resource that's out there that can help an SME anywhere in the world needs to be in the database. So those are two first quick things looking immediate, like tomorrow. Now, I don't know if I should share my screen or try to. Let's see if I can. Screen 3, it tells me to share. Do you see my screen?
Yes, David.
Okay, let me try and make this presentation mode. These are conversations we've had with different folks, and they are not anywhere near progressing in terms of signing of contracts or whatnot, but we've had, and this is just a summary of some of the ones we've had, but there's lots of interesting potential projects going forward for Africa. One of the ones that jumps out of the gate for me is conversations we're having with the African Guarantee Fund and they in turn with some of the commercial banks that they work with. The African Guarantee Fund is set up to de-risk or to reduce risk in lending for sustainability causes. And so they work with commercial banks for that. And one of the things that the feedback we're getting is banks want to lend to SMEs to, for sustainable operations or sustainable causes, but they don't know how to rate them. They're a bit hampered with an SME walks in and says, we want to do this with mango husks, and they don't know whether that's sustainable or not. So we're talking to the African Guarantee Fund to see if we can be able to work together to come up with a tool or a platform which banks can use to at least start assessing and segregating and seeing what's hot, what's not, what needs help. And also in that, and it's important to say that so that the SMEs also get so that there's also feedback that, hey, listen, this is the assessment, this is some resources for you to improve your position. And so that is something we're working on. We're also, we've had conversations, I should say, with GIZ on supporting SMEs in Kenya and Nigeria on these SMEs that offer technology targeted towards adaptation. So technology being products and services targeted towards climate change adaptation. That's an interesting conversation that we need to follow up on. Some of these things we need to pick up the thread. Something else that we are looking into, we've had conversations with Siemens Stiftung, which is Siemens Foundation, to look at helping drive a market-led process that comes up with improvements to policies that pertain to circularity and trade. And so trying to see how IGO can do that. Now, we don't have answers right now. These are just things we're throwing out there. We're hoping somebody can be able to jump in and say, hey, we'd like to pick up the thread on that. Something I know Hannes is leading the conversation on with UNIDO, and maybe Hannes, you have more to add on this, is with the EU-funded switch to circular economy value chains. We're trying to see how we can help SMEs that, remember at the beginning of the conversation, Hannes talked about SMEs that their client is another business. So in this case, if SMEs have EU multinationals that they're part of their value chain, trying to see how we can increase circularity within those value chains. So we're trying to see if this could be a useful tool for that. Then another conversation that we're having is we've got a good collaboration going with the Africa Circular Economy Alliance. And I know that they are supporting uptake of circularity in Africa in major sectors. They've come up with a good study, the 5 big bets on where there's the key opportunities of circularity. One of the other things that they're doing is trying to put together an incubation hub for SMEs to see to more circular economy in SME operations. So one of the things that we're thinking about doing is seeing how we can support that hub with the IGO initiative and the IGO assistant. We've also had conversations with the African Development Bank, which actually is it hosts a secretariat and is one of the founding members of the Africa Circular Economy Alliance. I know they too have a hub, and I call it more like they're trying to bring together all the innovation hubs that exist in Africa so that there's a commonality and there's a connectivity. And so that is also useful to the assistant, both from getting them to participate on the assistant, as well as also populating the assistant with resources, and then also hoping that we can be able to assist with self-assessment. So there's some good thinking going on. Maybe there's a few more I've left out, but the general idea is that we're really trying to get going on many different fronts to see how we can advance this. Now, there's lots of trainings, lots of events coming down the pipe. I just want to point you quickly to the Green Industry Platform events page. It's a handy page to go to. I think Hannes got in a ding. There we go. I think Hannes has mentioned the platform and also the group. And so there's also an events page. With that, I'll stop there. Again, thanks to all of you for your very active engagement. I think this is the beginning of a conversation, the beginning of an action. So we're looking forward to continuing this with you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, David. Sorry for the ding, but you know, we are based in Switzerland and everything is by the clock here. And we were actually 1 minute over the end of this workshop. So, you know, we got to do it the Swiss way. We got to watch our timing. So, but David, thank you so much. I think you did a really, really excellent wrap up there. And I think it's quite motivating to see all the different projects that we want to get involved in through the IGO and how we want to be able to support them. And the last thing that David said is the most important. This is just the beginning. This workshop is not just a once-off workshop where we all disappear and never see each other again. Unfortunately, or fortunately, whichever way you would like to see it, we will be following up with you all very soon. We will be engaging with you. You will constantly hear from us over the long-term future because we want to work with you. We want to help you and support you as best we can. And we are really looking forward to your support to make IGO ever more relevant and ever more, let's say, country specific, sector specific, as it has been brought up here. So we depend on you for that as well. With that, many, many, many thanks to everybody who took part here today. Your insights, your inputs are really appreciated. Speakers, contributors. I'm not going to use the word else of my team, David, because they will probably kill me, but the amazing GIP team that made IGO work, I would also like to thank. And of course, David, to your team as well, from Go for SDGs, without which none of this would have been possible. And thank you to our two interpreters, Cecile and Thomas. It was really much appreciated that you took part today and gave the interpretation. Thank you so much for your help on this as well. With that, let me wish you all goodbye, but not for long. You will hear from us. Wishing you a nice rest of the day in whichever country you are in. And until very soon again, all the very best.